Why exactly I'm not a Trump supporter? Hey, it's Prince of Queens, and I was watching a bit of Scott Adams defending himself in relation to being talked about on Sam Harris's podcast, and I had some revelations about why exactly I do not consider myself a Trump supporter. And I think a lot of people might agree. Mainly, I didn't vote for the guy and never encouraged other people to. So any claim of being a Trump supporter would be rather empty, even if I did now proclaim myself to be such a thing, as I have not proven myself to be a member of his voting demographic anyway. So why would he really care what I think? Like, why would he care if I said I was a Trump supporter? I didn't get him where he is. Also, there are various things about his character that bug me, and countless specific things he's already done which seem pretty bad. He does seem to be cozying up to the religious right to a certain degree, which will undoubtedly have some negative consequences somewhere down the line. I also don't approve of Trump's tax plan because it raises the taxes for people who make $20,000 a year or less from 10% to 12%. And I don't really fathom how there could be an argument to be made that that's fair. I think that that seems ridiculous. So, yeah. But really, I don't want to get into the various things that Trump has already done wrong, even though people will undoubtedly complain and say that I should be listing more. Mainly, I don't want to do this because I don't want to waste my time. Also, I don't want to go over the list of potentially bad things that he's done because countless people do that all day, every day. Furthermore, upon getting into power, literally every politician will do a few things that nobody will be able to stop. And some of those things will undoubtedly have dubious motives or effects. More often than not, they are fulfilling promises they made to their campaign donors, and there's basically nothing that we can do about it. Half the time, we won't even know that these things are happening, like the fact that apparently Trump has increased drone strikes since taking office. Still, there are also good things that Trump and his administration has done. I love the way he attacks mainstream media, and Betsy DeVos's decision to relinquish the tyranny of Title IX on university campuses was one of the most important advances in men's rights that we've ever witnessed, even though it's a relatively small advance and almost barely holding our ground. But still, it's a big deal. And yet, again, I don't want to get into the things that Trump did that are positive all that much because I am not here to tell you about the things I like about Trump. I am not going to go on and on about how he is persuasive and how cool that is because while I can see what Scott Adams is talking about, Scott Adams has talked about that enough. No, what I want to say is why I personally can't call myself a Trump supporter, and I think I can say it fairly simply. Inspired a bit by Scott Adams and the way he talks about the filters that we use to interpret reality. You see, according to Adams, you can choose to see the world the way you want to see it, and ultimately everybody does that. It's not really a choice, though you have some choice in it. And you see the world the way you want it to, at least until it stops making sense to you and you are forced to choose another filter. For myself, for most of my life, I always assumed that the left and the Democrats were the good guys, even when they behaved like bad guys. Because, to me, through my filter, conservative Republicans were the real bad guys. Because reasons. And granted, there were countless actual reasons to hate Republicans because I came of age during the Bush years. That was a filter I used to have, which has now been lifted, as I see the Democrats and the left as every bit as bad as conservatives and Republicans in the current year, if not worse, in many instances. Because most conservatives that I talk to are not ideological Puritans who think that their crap doesn't stink the way leftists largely seem to think about themselves. At this point, I see politics with a very complicated filter, with many variables that are always in flux. And I accept the fact that I cannot follow everything, and that there are some things that I probably should be best to ignore for now, even if these things might be relevant for me to know about in the future. However, I do see the Democratic Party through the filter of believing them to be, basically, in the current year, corrupt beyond redemption, to the point where they would need a complete gutting of the party in the way that Trump did to the Republicans for me to ever consider voting for the Democratic Party again. This is a party that drove us so far into debt that they had to pass a law to legalize the usage of propaganda on the American people so that they could lie about the state of the economy. I know that the Republicans contributed to that too, but things got bad. Be honest about that. And then, when they bankrupt their own party, keep in mind, Obama bankrupted the Democratic Party itself. Then they handed over complete control to a delusional, probable sociopath, Hillary Clinton, who still believes it was her turn, seemingly because she knows a lot of rich people and is a woman. These people are still singing the same song, of course, trying not to focus on being a better party at all, but trying to get votes by pandering to identity politics-focused bigotry. They basically just say over and over, well, we'll get the black vote, we'll get the woman vote. It's just bigotry. That's all they care about. They're just bigots. And they relentlessly demonize Trump with conspiracy theory nonsense about Russia and other such things. It's really all they got. They are just the lowest of the low at the moment. So yes, my current filter regarding how I make sense of politics is that the Democrats crashed and burnt like the Republicans did at the end of the Bush administration. But what does that make my filter look like regarding how I see the Trump administration? Well, to be perfectly truthful, I'm honestly not entirely sure, and my feelings are fearful at worst because I do remember the callous, sarcastic, greed-driven, money-glorifying mentality that was so popular among so many Americans during the Bush years. But I am also hopeful about a few things. And yet still, when I think about what I am hopeful about, I find myself not being sincerely, completely hopeful, but rather forcing myself to be hopeful and to imagine good possibilities. Mainly because of the fact that I was always so vehemently opposed to Hillary Clinton, and so I actively want to make the best out of a Trump presidency. Is this a rational way to view things? Technically, no. It's irrational. I am justifying and possibly excusing something negative simply because of my unprovable belief that the alternative would have been so much worse. But that's what I am left with, and I will never regret telling people not to vote for Hillary Clinton. Still, I'm not going to sit around pretending that I'm perfectly happy to do the mental gymnastics required to fully endorse Trump. I'm not going to pretend that I fully like the guy and that I would want to hang out with him. Maybe I would if it came up, and I'll admit that he entertains me and often makes me laugh. Still, do I actually like him? Do I actually support him? I'd have to convince myself of that. I'd have to apply a filter to the way that I see things. And I don't want to do that. because I like being honest with myself. That's all I have to say for this video. Stay tuned and tell me if you agree.